My name is Todd Fabricant. I am chairman of the Cerro Wire Coalition. I headed up a group of 26 civic groups, which you are a part of, business groups, chambers of commerce. I cannot thank all of you, whether you came to our rallies, you signed up petitions, you showed up at town hall, for the work that you did to stop the project that was going to be almost a 1 million square foot mall. I also wanted to thank some of the civic leaders that served on what we had as called the Alternate Development Committee. The Alternate Development Committee consisted of 14 leaders from around our area, from the school district, the fire district, the civic associations, the chambers, who sat and went through countless developers to find out what we could do and what we would like and what we might feel might be really good for the community. After a 20-year long fight, Oyster Bay Realty came to the table, and they are made up of the Simon Corporation, Castagna Realty, which owns Americana, Manhattan, and Wheatley, and the Albanese organization that has an awful lot of property in Garden City. Those two companies are very local and dear to our hearts. To make a presentation to all of you this evening, that is the beginning. It's a scratch of the surface. I'd like to introduce at this time from the Simon Corporation, Mr. Chuck Davis, Senior Vice President of Development, and thank you all for coming.
My name is Chuck Davis. I'm the Senior Vice President of Development for Simon. And again, just to clarify that this is, I'm here on tonight on behalf of the Oyster Bay Development LLC, which is again a partnership of Simon, Castagna, and Albanese. We acquired the town public works site about 18 months ago after a vote of the residents, I think in excess of 70%, vote of the residents of Oyster Bay that they preferred something along the lines of an alternative development versus what was proposed. And then a little over a year ago, we acquired the former Cerro Wire site. So there's about 93 acres all total, combined two sites. So yeah, through years of dialogue and resistance and commitment, you all participated in something pretty extraordinary, and that's exercise of land use control at the street, the block, the neighborhood level, and that does not happen very often. You gave a voice to a vision you could see for the property, alternate development, in the form of a smart growth mixed-use project. Supervisor Venditto had much the same vision, and so the commitment of the supervisor and the voice of the community has us bringing forward some of the proposals we have here today. So tonight, I'll give you a first look at what we propose to create as an alternative development vision and a mixed-use town center for the site. So this is the first in a series of meetings over the next few months that'll be like these types of meetings. So we're setting them up. We sent out 6,000 mailers, and we basically geographically split kind of certain neighborhoods into one night and then the next night. So we'll have more of those two-night sets coming up, and each time we'll have a little more information. We'll actually adapt some of our initial thoughts based on the comments and feedback we have, and that way, essentially, you all are part of and integral to the design process for what we're going to bring forward. And this is ahead of any formal application to the town. So let's start. I'm going to get back to talking a little bit about mixed use and what does it mean, because it's kind of a broad term, and helping define it, I think, is part of the dialogue. So in a sense, we think it means, and you always see the words live, work, play. It's plastered everywhere. But we also think it means it's a place that can relax and exercise, dine, be entertained, maybe do a little basic shopping, get some basic needs met. But the most important part is the really good ones are really community gathering places. And whether you live or work in that kind of place or just next door, the good ones become your place, an extension of your home and your neighborhood, and an expression of your quality of life. Some of the best examples of these development are really not new at all. They're those pre-automobile villages where you can safely walk to all the places you want to go. And you know many of them. Oyster Bay Hamlet, Cold Spring Harbor. I do want to point out on each of these, up in the corner, the boundaries of our 93-acre site relative to those villages. Roslyn and Garden City, which really I think is formerly known as the very first planned district in America. So we spent the last 9 months or so hashing through every bit of what this can be for our neighbors, friends, and the town citizens of Oyster Bay, and charted our course to create the best place that we could, given the long list of challenges and constraints on these combined sites. So what is just right for this part of Syosset that can add to the quality of life and be economically sustainable for all of you living nearby? So we start with the constraints of the site. What's around us? So we're bordered on one side by the Long Island Expressway and the service road. Needless to say, that's a very interesting frontage. And then you've got the Long Island Railroad, where you have over 100 trains a day that buzz through here. Robbins Lane, this street over here, and right across the street is the state highway maintenance facility. On the back side, you have a little bit of the edge of the drainage basin for around this industrial park. And then you have some homes back here, another little drainage basin, and then the elementary school. So you have a lot of uses that, especially when you look at this older business park here, that are kind of not all in sync with one another necessarily. But what we also say is that you need to look a little bit further out. And when you do, you see really we're the hub of 2,500 to 3,000 homes that are predominantly traditional single-family neighborhoods, and those are your neighborhoods. We think that's the foundation of what we're trying to create here. And then finally, what we can't forget is what the site used to be. Needless to say, this was the old landfill. This is the area that's been covered, and essentially that land cover is kept in place for the last 20 years, the Cerro Wire site, and then the public works site. So next, who best to help frame out that vision for us? And there's a lot of architectural firms that can draw plans and buildings, but we didn't want just an architect. Instead, we wanted to choose a firm whose focus is in creating town centers, small and large, across America and even onto other continents. And their careers have been taking that story of traditional walkable mixed-use places forward into the new towns and villages that they're part of, and that have every bit as much continuity and fiber of the original places from the past. So Duany Plater Zyberg, or DPZ, as they're known, has been doing this for over 30 years. From the groundbreaking Seaside project started in the early 80s in Northwest Florida, they've been involved in the Kentlands Master Plan Community, which is in Gaithersburg, Maryland, just out of Washington, D.C., and on up to Mashpee Commons up on Cape Cod, which is still in the process of being developed, and even across the pond to this really interesting, amazing village near the coast in Belgium. These are all new. So they've created these environments that very much feel like the fabric of the character of the places they are, and it's really hearkening back to the way things used to be built. So they've got nearly 300 town centers and city code redos under their belt, and importantly, they have living, breathing, built environments that show what can happen if you follow good patterns of our past to create these places. They're living labs, if you will. But they show you, if they set the foundation right, these places have proven to be every bit as interesting, vibrant, and desirable as when they first came out of the ground, some back as far as 30 years ago. Their projects don't look all the same. They range from tiny locales to whole communities to cities. But they follow the same underlying principles that allow each to find what's just right for that locale. So tonight, we're fortunate to have Andres Duany, one of their principals, and Galina Tachievo leading their team on this effort. And they're both here along with the table in our breakout session so you can see what they've done and why we selected them. Andres is, among other things, a Princeton grad and actually spent part of his early adulthood here in Nassau County. And it was important to us that we hired someone who understood and had a sense of the fabric of the place that you call home. So next, what's the larger regional context? So before we did anything, we looked around at all of these wonderful little hamlets and villages, and then we extended a little bit out to Southampton. We looked across the Sound, and we looked at places like Westport and Greenwich that are really self-sustaining villages of their own. I mean, Greenwich is way too big, but the general sense was that these are places that were really those wonderful places that you like to go to. They weren't just a shopping trip. They were really an experience, and they had all aspects of the quality of your life that you're looking for in those locations. Again, the Kentlands and Mashpee Commons are also solid examples of what they have worked on and continue to work on in the Northeast here. So we all know what was proposed on the site. It was at first 960,000 square feet, then just shy of 900,000 square feet of a standard mall with a parking structure and parking all the way around on the Cerro Wire site. And then you have the town site over here with public works and everything that's back there today. Both properties are zoned light industrial, which would allow them to combine to become a large industrial business park, expanding on what exists over here in the north end of the railroad, Our engineers did some quick down and dirty numbers, and you could put nearly 2 million square feet of industrial business park there. An office campus like what you have over where the LIE meets the Jericho Turnpike, where you have the Jericho Quad and the Jericho Plaza, you could add put over 2 million square foot of an office campus here under the current zoning. I don't think that we think either of those is really what should be here. And we honestly don't think that they're, given the impacts that they would have, it's not exactly what we think you will want. But it's what the sites are currently zoned for. So we have to understand that that is the foundation. One of our tables over here allows you to see the by right options in contrast to our proposal, as well as the mall project that was denied with a smaller office piece on the town site. So they'll give you allowed totable area, and they'll also give you the parking count for each one of those. So you can look at those yourself, and we call those single-use alternatives, because they're places you drive to, and then you drive away, typically at rush hour. Then there are other considerations, so like for instance, say the business and industrial park, you got big freight trucks that would be added on top of the parking for that. So we pulled back, we listened to what we heard prior to the election and going forward, and we dared to dream that big dream, which is to follow a full-fledged mixed-use approach. To look at the pieces of the office, shops, restaurants, entertainment, hotels, and yes, housing, just enough of each to ensure they are successful on their own, but also play off one another to share critical facilities and create a strong sense of place together. And we looked to the town of Oyster Bay Code and got guidance from the town so that we made sure that we were consistent with the intent of the code that the village town center type experience is in Oyster Bay. So again, perhaps the biggest piece of the puzzle is what to do with the former landfill. We could have just embraced a 30-acre surface parking lot, which is what you'd probably have if you had an office or a business park here. But we didn't, and we're proposing something very, very different. A great park. A great public park for the community of Syosset and Jericho. In the assessment of the site and the myriad of issues, Andres and Galina pushed back against treating this as just an afterthought, a negative condition, and said, why don't we embrace that and turn that into something positive? And frankly, that's why we hire people like this. It's simple. And the core of our vision to build everything else in the program you'll see tonight is based upon that premise.